Hello and welcome to the Zakariya Adeel podcast. I'm your humble host, Zakariya Adeel. And once again, we have this superstar of the online waves of the podcasting world, and kind of like a savant when it comes to CPTSD and narcissism.
Who's that? Who've you got on, Zach? He sounds awesome.
Well, it's Richard Grannon. Hello, Richard Grannon. Thank you for joining us again. Although this time we're not really talking about CPTSD or narcissism. We're talking about the tarot.
At last.
Yeah.
Free at last. Free at last.
Actually, how do you feel? Like this is going to be a slightly different conversation to what you I mean, most of the time you are talking about CPTSD and narcissism and that sort of stuff. Do you feel like it kind of constrains you somewhat?
Oh, I think it's worse than that. I think at this point, I'd go so far as to say it has a slightly poisonous effect on me. Me and psychotherapy are not friends this month. We are really not friends. I may go back, but I'll never go back to talking about narcissism ever again. I think talking about it really, really empowers it massively. CPTSD, we can't avoid touching on it, but I will no longer be presenting psychotherapeutic models of dealing with it. I really think it's poison.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. I'm not sitting on the fence on that one, mate.
No. I mean, it kind of makes sense. I mean, some of my friends have said that you've delved too far into it, because I have a tendency to get a bit obsessive about things: astrology, tarot, screenwriting, and now my most recent one probably is the narcissism, CPTSD stuff, because I can understand the benefits of learning about it, because if you know what the pitfalls are, then you can do something about it. However, the law of attraction, which I know you're not entirely a fan, but the law of attraction would say that the more you focus on something, the more you attract it into your experience. So you're activating it. You're activating it. So therefore, it stays.
I'm very, very sensitive to what people spend their time and attention on now, much more than I've ever been before in my life. And it's good to know, and it's interesting. You won't make a better life for yourself by focusing on it, though. If you want to make a better life for yourself, you have to focus on making a better life for yourself. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Well, the same could be said about the tarot, because I went through a period of time where I was obsessed with it, and the smallest thing would happen and I'd have to pull out the tarot cards and see what they say, and I'll drive myself crazy. You can go overboard with anything.
Yeah, you can. And I'd go so far as to say, if people are anywhere on that sort of spectrum for being anxious or depressed or a little bit emotionally dysregulated, they should stay away from the tarot, because it will make you sicker. You have to be very strong and boundaried to handle the tarot, because you're handling chaos. I found out, I think it was last summer, we may have discussed this before, that if in the Jewish Orthodox tradition, if you're going to study Kabbalah, they won't let you do it unless you are married, have children, and are over the age of 40.
Oh, I know.
Because when they found that when they were teaching it to people who were not married and young, they lost too many people. They would just go completely crazy, because you need to be grounded. You're really opening up a doorway to a realm of pure chaos, which if you're already sort of in a not very strong, not very healthy way, open to that anyway, it can really further the sickness, toxify you a little bit.
That makes sense. It does make sense if you just think about it. I mean, anything that's you're not sort of grounded in any way, you could, where you can end up goodness knows where.
Yeah. And if you're frightened and you're lonely, and you start to experience that the tarot is talking to you, you might turn to it where you should be talking to a friend or having a conversation with yourself. And I've lived that. I've lived, my God, I think in my 20s when I was a cokehead, I think I was stalking a girl through the tarot, my ex-girlfriend, trying to figure out what she was up to, which I think is the sickest I've ever been in terms of being obsessed with something external in my life. I'd say it was a sicker addiction than my addiction to cocaine, because it's a fetish. It's an externalized fetish that I was using, well, it's just total abuse. That's not what they're for. It's not what the tarot is for.
Yeah. But I bet you when you did that, though, you learned how to read the tarot pretty well.
Well, when you're a nutter and you're obsessed and all you're doing is like, oh, you know, does she still love me? Is she with somebody else? Yeah, you learn the tarot very, very thoroughly.
But the thing is, that's what happened. I had a time where I was kind of really sad and depressed and lonely and blah, blah, blah. And that's when I sort of really turned to the tarot to understand what was happening in my world. And to begin with, you do go a bit, it's not helpful initially, because you're just interpreting things that you want to believe is there, as opposed to what's actually there. Or sometimes you'll do, you can get worse than that. Sometimes you'll interpret the worst possible thing as a result of the tarot cards as well.
Yes.
So the thing is, once you come out on the other side, you will have learned what the tarot cards actually mean. Hopefully, if you're doing it well, and you'll know the positives and the negatives of each card, and then you can begin to use it in a more balanced way. So even though during that time that is difficult, there's a benefit in it.
Yes, if you want to study and you want to learn, and we know that the tarot is kind of, it's rooted in the Kabbalistic tradition, and so you get insight into various systems of magic, because it represents a synthesis of multiple systems and Kabbalah, and it's a system of divination, which means that you can be opened up to systems of divination from other countries as well. I got to the point with it where I would say, before I read for people, I'm only going to read for you if we both agree that what we're doing is with positive intent and it's for the purpose of enlightening you. And I'd always say, I really can't show you anything you don't know. That's not what the cards do. You already know. And all that will happen is, when you see the cards, there'll be a resonance at the unconscious level, and you'll see yourself in those cards. You'll see the parts of your shadow that you didn't want to look at. And to that extent, I think the tarot is quite brutal. I mean, if you ask a question, it will give you a fucking answer, even if it really hurts you. Again, that's why we have to be strong. We have to be boundaried. If you use the Tao Te King, it's a little more refined when it answers you. It's much gentler. But
what
yeah,
is that? What is that? Is that the I Ching?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
There's no such thing as the I Ching. It's just bad Chinese to say that.
Is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
But that's what everybody calls it. They call it the I Ching. Yeah. But it's the Tao Te Ching.
Well, there's a Tao of it. So what you have there is, you have in the I Ching, you have Taoism and Confucianism. Again, it's a synthesis. It's not we don't know what the original is anymore. It's lost thousands of years ago. So what the I Ching tries to do, or the I Ching tries to do, is it tries to lead the questioner back to living a good life. And I think the tarot, there is an element of that in the tarot, but it's much stronger in the I Ching. It's like there's an orthodoxy to the I Ching. This is how a person should live in alignment with heaven. This is how a person should live in alignment with the laws of nature. The tarot is a little bit more fuck you in its attitude. It's a bit like, well, you asked, here you go. And sometimes it'll throw the answer in your face.
Yeah, absolutely. It can do that. So when I was writing I've been doing the tarot since 97. Then I went professional when I was in 2005. So, and I was started doing the festivals and stuff like that. And interestingly, I also started writing for the magazines at the same time, the astrology. I was writing astrology predictions for the magazines, like Prediction Magazine, Chariot, Fate, that sort of stuff. And one thing I learned very, very quickly after the first year of writing for the magazines, the editor said to me, you are a bit brutal. You say what you think, and we want to be a bit lighter with our audience. We don't want to scare them. So I learned very quickly that they want me to give a positive spin on the astrological predictions, and then my tarot also reading went that way as well, because I don't want to scare people. I want to uplift people. I want to make them feel better about their lives and give them a sense of power. So that's how my reading turned that way as well. So I'll always give people the positive spin on what I see in the cards. And the way they'll know that the cards are not so great is when I'm giving sort of ideas of how they can improve the situation.
Right.
For example, we'll get to it when we talk about the cards individually. So this video, what I wanted to do was go through the major arcana, and maybe we'll hit onto the minor arcana if we get time. But really, I think we won't. I mean,
I've forgotten about 50% of the minor, but we could try.
Really, you say that, but when you see the image, it will remind you.
Is it? Did you say it's Rider-Waite that you have?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've got so many packs, but you want to go with the classic one. And the thing is, if you want to learn the tarot, I really think the Rider-Waite is the one to go with. And don't start off with any of the other packs. Don't start with the ones where in the minor arcana there's just 6 wands is 6 wands. I mean, how are you meant to know what that means? You need to have a card with an image on there that tells you of an archetypical situation, especially when you're learning. Now I can read with a pack of playing cards. I can read with anything, because I know what the cards mean. So, but when you're starting, you definitely want to use a pack like the Rider-Waite. So let's get started. So the very, very first card, it's not even a 1, it's a 0, it's the full card. So actually, before I go there, I have a tendency to run ahead. Just to explain how the tarot works really quickly. So it's 1 pack of 78 cards, but really there are either 2 packs in there, you can say, or you could say there's 3. So the major arcana are the first 22 cards, they're the cards of fate. So what this means is the major arcana cards, the 22 major arcana cards are the most powerful cards in the pack. So when you lay out a spread is when you actually lay down a set of cards to look at them and read them in the interpretations based upon, and each position in the spread has a specific reason. So for example, the first one might be the past. If we do a basic 3-card spread, past, present, and future, you lay down the cards there. If you see a major arcana card, it has more prominence than a minor arcana, which is the other set. So, but then there's also 16 court cards. Now, me with my Chinese astrology, there are 16 groups of nine signs. There's 144 charts the way I do it. I combine Chinese and Western astrology together, as you probably know. So there's 16 groups of 9 signs. So each one of the 16 archetypical personality types, which also relates to the Myers-Briggs 16 groups as well, fits in with one of those groups. So I find that interesting because it totally relates with my astrology stuff. Still, there are 16 archetypical personality types, and then there are the pip cards as well. So really, I would see them as 3 separate packs of cards in 1 set of cards. All right. Today, what we're looking at is the major arcana. So coming back to the very first card, which is the Fool card. What is your interpretation of the Fool card, Mr. Richard Grannon?
It's 0. And so we do have 22 cards in the major arcana, as you say. There are 21 numbers in a 0. A 0 is a non-number. So you have cycles of time come in 7s. So you have 3 cycles of time that you go through to get from 1 to 21. And then typically is the end of a chapter of life. And then you get to begin again, which is what tarot is. Tarot is, I can't remember. Is it palindrome? It's rota. So if you say rota, you start saying tarot, but it's actually rota. It's a wheel. Okay. And so the 0 is a wheel. So this is our fresh beginning, but it's also death, because something has just ended in order for us to have a fresh beginning. So there's been all this form and all this content. It's grown, it's moved, it's gone through the magician, the Empress, the temperance, the devil, all the rest of it, and then it's kind of collapsed. So the Fool is usually perceived as a good card. I see it as being a good card, but when people get that, I will always be tempted to say to them, please let go of the past. Please let go of what you thought was, and be ready for anything. Be ready to move forward, because you're now in the realm of pure potentiality, and it's a magical moment. You can set your intent now for the next 21, for the next 3 sets of 7 that are coming your way.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good way of looking at it. I think of the Fool, because it is kind of a 0, it's not even a 1, it's gestation period. And I think of, it's that time where everything is pure potentiality. So you can take a risk. A risk is likely to pay off as long as it's upright, not reversed. I don't know if you read with reverse cards. I also read with reverse cards as well.
What is it? What is the Fool reversed?
Don't take the risk. It's an opportunity. If the Fool reversed would be, okay, there's an opportunity that's coming to you. It looks great. It's not great. Do not take it. Check contracts very, very carefully. And all that glitters is not gold.
Right.
that's how I would interpret that. Because my interpretation of the Fool card, generally speaking, is he's about to look at this. He's about to walk off a cliff. He's got his dog with him, his white dog as well. Like I've got a white dog, he's packed. He's going on an adventure. It's a brand new beginning, fresh feelings. This is what do you know about Aristotle and the Fool's journey? It's the hero's journey, really, but it could also be the Fool's journey. So there's that whole notion of the story of the hero's journey is there's only one story in Hollywood, which is the hero's journey, which is told in a variety of different ways. And this is the Fool on his journey. So this is the beginning of the screenplay.
Right.
So there's also that aspect to this card as well. Should we move on?
Oh my God. I've just realised that all the you said the Myers-Briggs follows the 16 personality types. That would make sense because, well, it was Jungian psychology, jacked from Jung, wasn't it? And he was big on the tarot cards. And I watched a really bad movie last night. I watched it right the way through. I'm not proud of it, but it happened.
What was it?
It's called Hardcore Henry. Nobody, please don't watch it. But it's a Russian, low budget Russian made action movie that's first person perspective throughout, and you could almost say that the film follows the story of the tarot from beginning to end. It starts with a birth, and then it ends with a grand realization, a grand enlightenment, which is always a kind of death.
Yeah. So you don't recommend it then, Hardcore Henry?
People are going to watch it now. It's right there on Netflix. Maybe scan through it.
It's called Hardcore Henry, for goodness sakes. I mean, it sounds like a porn movie, actually, more than anything else.
Well, it is kind of violence porn. It's silly. It's got a good sense of humor. It's got a good heart, and it's got a weird fixation with British culture as well for a Russian-made film. But the reason why I chose it was because the sort of the thumbnail for it is a guy looking down the barrel of a Gatling gun. And I was like, I'll give this 2 minutes and then I'll go back to work. And I ended up watching it for an hour and 15 minutes. I ain't proud, folks, but it happened.
Okay. All right. Was it recent or was it old?
It's 2018. It's got the other reason I clicked on it is it's got that nice South African actor who was in District 9. I just really like the dude's face, and he's a very affable, likable sort of an actor, and he's not the main character in it, but he's in it. Multiple avatars of him are in it, which is people. I'm selling this now. People are going to fucking watch it.
Have you ever seen Cloud Atlas?
I think I tried to watch it and I bounced. I don't know why I didn't stick with it because I had some actors in it that I liked. Is it worth a go?
Well, the thing is that it's really interesting you say that because a lot of people felt that way. It's kind of long and it's quite draggy. So I think a lot of people didn't like it, but I loved it. I loved it, but it was one of those weird. It's one of those movies where even if you look at the reviews, half the people were like, "What the hell was this with all these great actors? What was going on here?" And the other half really loved it, and I was in the half that loved it. I just was interested to see how you felt about it.
It's a sci-fi movie, right?
Yeah. And when you mentioned the different, lots of avatars, it's because it's kind of different times, and the same people will be born again in different timelines.
Oh, I think maybe I did stick with that. It's got Wolverine in it, right?
No, it's got Tom Hanks in it.
Oh, yes.
No, Hugh Jackman's not in that one.
No, not Hugh Jackman. Yes, I have seen Cloud Atlas, and yeah, actually, I did. In the end, they're on a foreign planet. I actually quite like that film.
Yeah.
I could see why people didn't. I could see why it was a bit of a stretch in some places, but I'm such a sci-fi nerd. I just had a lot of sympathy for what they were trying to do, and I want them to make more films like that. So I was like, bravo, please do more. That wasn't perfect, but keep going with it.
Well, they ran out of money kind of 2/3 of the way in, and Tom Hanks funded the rest of it.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyway, we'll leave that. Come back to the tarot.
Sure.
The Magician card, number 1. What have you got to say?
I think sometimes at my best, when I'm doing well, I show up as this dude. I can show up as if he's naughty, he's a trickster and he's a con artist. If he's good, he's potentially a psychotherapist, potentially somebody who can offer real alchemy. He can take things from lead to gold. He's not an airy fairy wizard. He's a street performing wizard, and he's also an entrepreneur. He's a guy who makes things happen in the world. I love it when the major shows up. I always see that as a good sign for a client. It's a sign of being mercurial, being flexible, using your native intelligence and getting things done.
Do you know of any minor arcana cards that are complementary to this one? Can you think of any?
Well, usually I would give the reading a theme. So the one that springs to mind, there's 8 of discs. So if the theme of the reading was work related, I would be, it's not really complementary, but I would be looking at skills developed over time, entrepreneurialism, and expressing those skills in the world. Yeah, that's complementary.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I was thinking of the Knight of Wands, the one who's like, let's get down to it, let's take action. 8 of Wands as well is the synchronicity and speed card, making things happen. Kind of magic is on your side.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, so when I look at the Magician card, I think of the fact that he's got all of the symbols of the minor arcana, the cups, the wands, the pentacle, and the sword. And so he's got access to all of the world's tools, all of the universe's tools. So everything is at his disposal. It just depends on what he does with it. I also think of the law of attraction when this card comes up, because he's the magical manifester. He can create what he wants in his life. So when this card comes up for somebody, I think it's a powerful time of manifestation. Those things that you're wanting, now's the time to take action and make it happen in your life and bring it forwards.
There's a little martial arts element to the Magus as well. His right yang hand is going up towards heaven. The yin, the feminine hand, is down towards earth. And there's actually a throw in Aikido where you do that, and it's called Ni Ten or something like that. It means the heaven earth throw. So he's in the Yi King, he would be a man aligned with heaven and the laws of nature, or a human, a person aligned with. He's
actually pointing to the ground, you know. It's the first time I've ever noticed that. He's actually pointing to the ground. Can you see?
Wow. Yeah.
I never noticed that. Okay. Well, that's the thing about
might be saying, look to heaven, but stay grounded. So it's hermetic wisdom, as above, so below.
Yeah. And of course, then there's a Mobius strip over his head as well, the number 8, which symbolizes
infinite intelligence.
Yeah, exactly. Well, yes, yeah, exactly. Which is connected to the universe, connected to it's the law of attraction stuff.
And it's right in his crown chakra.
Yeah. Talking about crowns and crown chakras, the next one is the High Priestess.
To me, this would depend on whether it's if I'm reading for a man or for a woman, because the High Priestess to me would represent the anima and spirit and the eternal, the feminine part of our nature. So if it shows up in, like, I used to read for bouncers quite a lot. So if it showed up, I'd be like, you know, if you're being a little bit too macho, you might be cutting out a lot of your own intuition about life. You might not be receptive to other people's emotional states, your own emotional states, and maybe you can afford to open up to that. You can afford to open up to taking guidance from your dreams, from your intuition, that kind of thing. But she's not far away from where the Magus is, but where he's obviously more yang and phallic with his big wand in his hand. She's more yin and more receptive. She's not so much about what you do out there in the world and the fireworks. She's more about what is, to the way I would usually interpret it, is what it is that you are receiving and what you do with it.
I think of her as, because she's a High Priestess, and then we also have the High Priest or the Hierophant, I think of them as the two sides of the coin, as opposed to the Mages. He's kind of stands, well, I mean, there's lots of cards that stand alone, but I don't, like, you've got the Empress and the Emperor. And then the Hierophant comes afterwards. It's weird that they haven't put the High Priestess and the Hierophant next to each other as well. That's also interesting.
Right.
But when I look at her, I think of, she's got the, it looks like the Torah in her hand. It says the Torah as well. She's got the Torah in her hand. And,
right.
I remember how many times have I looked up with the B and the J, and I always freaking forget. Yeah, no, I didn't know that.
The B and the J is Boaz and Jacob.
That's it.
Reference, yeah.
Yeah, and also a Jewish reference as well. Well, same thing with the Old Testament. So yeah, so this is also symbolic of the moon goddess, Diana or Semiramis. But yeah, she's when I look at this card, I think of the need to slow down. She's the one that holds the secret knowledge. So she's saying, hold on, there's things you need to see first before you take action. So slow everything down. Don't rush yourself into any action right now. Let's just wait and let the intuitions and the sort of messages come to you via dreams, via just knowings, or maybe somebody will say something to you, but slow it down. Don't rush to make a decision yet. And then let the right decision come to you and then act. As opposed to the magician, which is now act now, make it happen. So now we move on to, is there anything else you wanted to say on that one?
Nope.
Okay, now we've got the Empress. I love it when this card comes up. I just think it's such a beautiful card.
Yeah, there's the, I think with the Empress, I'd usually be looking at so taking what you get from the High Priestess and then putting it in a place hierarchically in your life, which is really, it's really not easy to do. I'm going to use a word. I don't use this word very much. It's patriarchy, but we are patriarchal. It is a patriarchal society, and it is a little bit out of balance. It's certainly not the way we should be living in accordance with what the tarot would suggest. There is a lack of balance there. And so having the feminine put into a place that is in the hierarchical structure, to me, would be a message to, take it seriously. Like, your intuition matters, your emotions matter, your capacity to heal others matter. The world, it can't just be about, dominance and machines and production, and that otherwise, if we are stuck in that state, we'll get very, very sick. And here we are, very, very sick indeed.
Yeah. So when I look at the Empress, I'm thinking the fact that she's a pregnant woman, or she looks pregnant. Some packs they're more blatant with how she's meant to be a pregnant lady. I think of the fact that it's 9-month gestation period. I think of the fact there's a 3 by 9 is also there's 3 3s and 9. I also look at the fact that she's surrounded by nature. So the Empress is the patron of nature, of creativity, and she's giving birth. She's getting ready. She's creating a child. So therefore, the creative side is also very active with this card and with this personality. So I think of, like, if somebody gets this card and they're just starting a project, I think, well, the chances are it'll take 9 months before it sort of reaches a sort of 9 months to 3 years, because you've got 3, or 3 months, or 9 days, or however you want to look at it. But the 3 and the 9 in terms of the numbers become significant with this card. And I think that if this card comes up and you're thinking about doing something more creative, do it, because you're ready for it. And also, it's also to do with taking charge, that feminine power, taking charge, but in the feminine world, in feminine arenas, yin arenas rather than yang ones. Yeah. What do you like? If you disagree with anything, go do sort of say something. I mean, I'd be interested.
No, I don't. I mean, with a lot of this stuff, the divination type stuff, I sort of feel like it has to be an element of open source-ness to it. Otherwise, it's just going to become a new form of dogma, isn't it? You have to be. It's like dreams or poetry. It's alluding to this. It's alluding to that, so that in the client's mind there can be an effort at interpretation. If there's no scope for interpretation, I don't know I don't know. It just feels too locked in.
I think also that the images are so rich that there's so much to interpret as well. So I mean, like for example, I never noticed that the magician was pointing down to the ground. I'd never seen that before. And also it depends on where your eye goes. Like I had somebody I used to know contacted me to tell me that her sister has been kidnapped or abducted or whatever you want to call it. And she just asked me desperately, can you see something in the cards? Will you just pull the cards out and see if you see anything? And I was like, oh God, first of all, I was in a panic, and you don't want to read the cards when you're in a panic. So I had to meditate to calm myself down. And then when I was able to look at the cards, I just kept seeing boats. I saw the two of pentacles, you know, when he's juggling, and then there's a boat in the background. I didn't look at the pentacles or the fact they were juggling. My eyes went straight to the boat in the background. Then I pulled another card and I got the Six of Swords when they're in a boat and they're going from one place to the other. So I just kept getting the boats, three of wands with the boats going off. So I'm like boats. All I see is boats. And she said the police think that she's been moved via a boat. And so that's what they've said as well. But can you see anything more? And I said to her, all I see is a boat. All I just see is the boats. So it's interesting that the boats aren't the most significant thing on those cards necessarily. But that's when I was drawn because of the question. Yes. So if you let your intuition guide you to what the question demands, then you'll find you're kind of directed correctly.
Yeah, which is the tricky area of tarot, really, because any reasonable person who comes across this would say, well, what is this? Like, is it cold reading? Are you talking to an entity? Are you talking to some field of intelligence, or what is it? And again, I think it cannot be put into words. It can't be defined. It's mercurial. But there's something there between that which is not yet conscious, which we usually call the unconscious, and where the boundaries between us seem to be a little thinner than they would be normally. And so it's interesting that you pulled the cards and you didn't take the surface level interpretation. Your eyes were pointing at the boats in the card. I didn't know there was a boat on the tour disc. I knew there was a boat on the Six of Swords. Didn't even know that. I've never seen that, and I've used the Rider-Waite since I was 20 years old. Let me show it to you.
Let me show it to us right at the back. There we go. It's so small you wouldn't even notice it.
Oh wow! There it is.
But my eye went straight to that boat.
Amazing.
This is symbolic of the fact that you're pushing, because you're so busy and you're just having to work so many jobs and get so much done. You've relegated the emotional aspects of your life and the darker aspects that you had to deal with, and you can't deal with it right now. So you push it to the background, and that's what the stormy waters in the background and the boat symbolize. That's a traditional interpretation.
Was she okay? Your friend?
I never found out, because the poor girl, just the sister, just kept harassing me, and I'm like, I don't know what to give you. I don't know how to answer your question. I'm so sorry. I'm not getting anything more. And so I just had to stop responding to her messages.
Yeah.
I've often wondered if they were Polish sisters. I just felt really bad, but I'm too scared to also find out. I don't want to know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. The Emperor.
Oh, Daddy. Big Daddy. So that's probably the most masculine card in the deck. The big Yang, the big boss man in charge of everything. When that comes up, I'd be saying to people, consider what your empire is. Everybody has an empire. You might, even if you don't, you don't think you do. You have an empire. You are an emperor. What kind of an empire are you running? What kind of emperor are you? And I would say to people, consider the limits of your empire, consider what you would want your empire to be about, and consider the things that you are in control of and can develop. Again, if it's a work-related card, I would see that as a good card. Because the Emperor tends to bring things that flourish and things that thrive.
Astrologically, it's symbolic of Aries, because you can see the rams on the chair. and so I think of the sign of Aries as being quite dominant, fiery, in charge. So yeah, I agree. The Emperor to me is also about boundaries. You talk about boundaries, so I think of the first thing that comes to me when I see the Emperor coming, and it's with somebody who sat in front of me, and they're not sort of managing the waters of their life very, very well. The waters are spilling all over the place. Now is the time to create those boundaries to contain that and be able to make something productive out of it. Sometimes he comes as a real, not a warning, but a reminder that boundaries are necessary. That this is the issue that you're facing. This is the problem because you have not protected yourself. You have not said to yourself, "This is what I need, and this is what I need to carve out for myself. This is mine. That's your." You know, as you say in one of your 5-finger exercises, which I love. But yeah, this is mine. That's yours. That's a really firm way of seeing that when you get this card, when you get the Emperor card.
Yeah.
And I agree with everything you said in terms of taking charge. Now's the time to take charge with this card as well. Hierophant, number 5.
I like him. He's a friend. So if that card came up for me, I'd be asking the person if they were raised with a particular religious faith, or if they were, what environment, what country they were in, what religious faith that was, and if there's anything there from their past that represents the tradition that they were raised in, that they can draw guidance or strength from. Is there, and because obviously we live in a postmodern world, I was raised in a particular religious culture, so we've sort of not left it, but definitely moved beyond it. And that card would be like, is there anything that I need to go back to that I'm very, very familiar with, that usually I would push away because it's straight Christian tradition theology, that maybe I should be looking at, or that I could draw guidance from.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what? These days, I don't really look at it I don't even think of it in terms of, obviously it is a religious card. I think of it more of in terms of the orthodoxy and the conventional way of doing things, but yet with the secret society nods as well. So it's just about conformity and going along with the way the established ways are, the norms.
It's conservatism, isn't it?
Yeah. And I think this card also has the marriage. This is to do with marriage. This card is also to do with marriage, and it's also to do with gurus and teachers. So sometimes if you have a wise person in your life, it's like, well, maybe speak to somebody who you consider a guru. Maybe they can offer you some advice right now.
Yes.
Yeah. I don't have a great relationship with this card for some reason. I mean, I'm not the most conventional person anyway, but still, I don't know why. When this card comes up, I'm like, I just sort of sink somehow. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, it's not for me, because I am, generally speaking, quite anti-establishment, but I see it as like it's like a philosophy thought experiment. So I would say to myself, okay, Richard, usually you give the anti-establishment rebel answer. What can you say that's from a more conservative, traditional, hierarchical point of view that is of value?
Oh, I see.
I'm like, no, I'm like, no, none of it. It's all shit. And I'm like, well, you know it isn't. You know it isn't. I think I told you I had a period of time where I had 80% Muslim clients. It was when I was in Malaysia, and I'd find myself in these coaching sessions encouraging people to go back to religion and to pray. And I would say to them, obviously, I'm not of your faith, but if you believe, or if you did believe as a child, you could still find something here. Something. Obviously, most people are speaking to me. They're not devoutly religious, because they would just be taking their problems to the imam. And I would sort of be encouraging them gently to sort of just go back on your terms as an adult. Is there anything in prayer? Is there anything in humility? Is there anything in submission to God's will? Is there anything there that you think you could find useful, just as a thought experiment? You get like maybe. And I think for people like me and you, we can forget that there is comfort in tradition. There is comfort there. There is solace there. Nobody should stay there. You shouldn't live there, but maybe sometimes we can throw the baby out with the bathwater sometimes.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Sometimes I still pray in the evening, not on the prayer mat, but I'll still do a Muslim prayer sometimes. If I have trouble sleeping, it really
Yeah.
helps. Because everything is psychosomatic. I really believe everything is psychosomatic, if you, or something like that. So I'll do anything that works.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. The Lovers, number 6.
I'd probably the most misinterpreted card of the deck, other than Death. I mean, this might be love. This might be a sign for a relationship. But usually, say if somebody's saying, am I going to get back with my ex, or is it going to work out with this person? And then the Lovers card comes up, their eyes light up and they're like, oh, we're lovers. And I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. If it was 2 of Cups, yes. But the Lovers card is a hard card. I think it's actually, in some traditions, also known as the Decision, I think. So to me, it's a hard card because the person who you're doing the reading for, somewhere in their life, has to choose between the sacred and the profane. They have to choose between adolescence and adulthood. They have to choose between the good long-term satiation of value versus the short-term gratification of, lust and whatever else. So I always say to people, like, don't be too happy you got this card. It's tough. This is a card that asks a lot of the person who's being read for.
You know something funny? As you said all that, I forgot I was talking to you and I thought I was watching you.
I think it's called derealization. Did you try and fast forward me? Were you like, he's going on a bit here?
I'll tell you, I just sort of looked back and I'm like, yeah, Richard Grannon's on TV. I'm like, and I completely forgot that I'm actually having a conversation with you as opposed to watching you. The thing is, there is so much crap on TV. I would rather watch something on YouTube I hardly ever watch TV now. So if nothing else is on, I'm like, what's he done now? Let's have a look. Let's put it on. Anyway, I'm back. We're conversing. Yeah. Well, I look at it as self-healing. I look at this card as the need to self-heal first and foremost. And then once you self-heal, then you're in a place of health, then you can attract romantic love into your life. But this is to me, this is a sacred card. Hence why they're naked. Because in order to really attract a loving experience into your life, you have to be, you can't keep playing mind games with who you are, and you have to get to a point of where you are okay with who you are. Because if you're not okay with who you are, you're going to keep on attracting bizarre people into your life, and that's not healthy for anybody. Get to a state of psychological nakedness, but still you have to. I'm not saying you don't protect yourself. You do need to protect yourself.
Vulnerability with boundaries. The Brene Brown way of doing things.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Brene Brown, who is a snake Scorpio, very, very wise woman. Very wise.
Is she really a snake Scorpio?
Snake Scorpio.
Do you know off the top of your head what Louis C.K. is?
He's a sheep Capricorn, I think. I'm not sure about Capricorn, but he's a sheep something. Sheep Capricorn. Let me look him up.
I really like him. I really resonate with him. And I'm like, every time I listen to him, I'm like, I've got to ask Zach what this is. Like, why do I resonate with this guy so much?
I mean, sheep is your soulmate sign. Sheep is the one that you're most suited to romantically. Not CK himself, but it's
Louis.
Louis CK. Let me look him up. I think he's a Capricorn as well, is he? Let me look him up. No, Virgo, still Earth, not Capricorn Earth, but Virgo Earth. So yeah, sheep Virgo.
Oh, interesting.
Sheep Virgo, yeah.
Interesting. I do like Virgos. I got some good mates who are Virgos. There seems to be a good counterbalance to my.
So here, well, Virgo's opposite to Pisces, and sheep is the best sign for horse. So on the one hand, you've got the best part, and one part you've got opposition. So that always makes for an interesting dynamic. Obviously, I'm not saying you're in love with Louis C.K., but in terms of dynamics of the personality,
I am in a way. I am in a way. I have definitely non completely hetero feelings for Louis C.K.
Do you know about his little controversy?
Oh, it was a big controversy. I mean, it's knocked him out the circuit for years. Well, I actually saw him in London 6 months before that story broke. I was devastated, absolutely devastated.
I mean, I haven't really watched anything of his since that time. Not because I care about the controversy, just because it's not been easily accessible, so I haven't bothered. But has he managed to claw his way back?
He is a bright guy, and he's taking his time. He knows that he can't just jump back in. He had a new set that he was going to release, and somebody recorded it illegally and released it on YouTube. And he's such a he's so precious about his comedy that he just scrapped the whole set. He writes a whole new hour and a half every year.
Oh, he's amazing.
And
he's amazing.
He's amazing.
Very
so
prolific.
when that was released, he was like, right, I'm not released, because it wasn't worked out yet properly. So there was some of the stuff in there was a little rough, and he got in more trouble for that. But he has released a comedy special since, where he talks about the scandal, and he jokes about it and everything. He'll be back. He's a really great comedian.
I mean, when it all happened, he was at the top of his game. I mean, he was the top comedian of the time. So,
but he said in one of his sets 2 years before it happened, he said he was joking around and saying, "I'm much richer than all of you. I fly first class everywhere. My life is better than yours." And then he laughed and he said, "Don't worry about it. I've only got 18 months left." And then 18 months later.
Well, this is what you said. Do you remember you said, like, what you say becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy? So you've got to be very careful about what you say.
Absolutely. I find him fascinating, because obviously he has real problems, and like what he was doing was just, as I said, I was absolutely gutted when I found out. But he will be making his way back. But as a case study in CPTSD, he's fascinating. Like somebody who's really he's had, like, I imagine, little bits and pieces of therapy, but just can't be arsed with it. And then just cracks on. Do you know, I think I coached his sister years ago?
No, you didn't tell me that.
There was a joke that me and his sister, if it is her, this woman from New York, he does reference his sister sometimes. Incredibly funny. The funniest coaching client I ever had. But we had a running joke between us that actually popped up a year later in one of his sets. And I was like, hey, that's...
Oh, how bizarre.
Yeah, really strange. Anyway, let's just crack on. Rota.
Okay. Chariot.
I love it.
Me too.
Yeah, jump on board. You're doing well. Ride this vehicle forward. I get you could even it's that whole law of attraction thing. My angle on it would be like the things that you focus on definitely grow stronger. So your thought, word, and deed kind of summons experiences into being. And when you've been doing that for a while, the chariot's going to show up and you're going to start riding straight towards that thing. It's a very powerful vehicle. No obstacles can stand in front of it.
It's also the card that connects to the horse sign.
Oh, right. The
horse sign that has the greatest need for freedom of all 12 Chinese signs. Obviously, normally there's two horses here, there's the sphinxes, but generally speaking, well, I suppose this being most other packs, you'll find that the chariot has horses or unicorns as opposed to sphinxes. And to be honest, again, I've never quite realized that they weren't horses. I kind of always thought they were horses because there's a chariot card.
Yeah, it's a very Egyptian looking card, isn't it?
So to me, this card is about, it has some specific interpretations, which is about relocation, relocation of new jobs, relocating home, relocating for work, and success. Is one of the 3 victory cards. This one, Ace of Swords and 6 of Wands. One of the 3 victory cards. If you get those 3 cards together, or you get 2 of them, it's a good omen for something you're trying to achieve. But the Chariot card is a great card. Take the reins. You are now in charge. Also, if you look at the 2 sphinxes, I say horses. One's black and white. Well, they're both black and white, but one is the yin, one is the yang. So it's about taking the reins, but using those 2 polarities, those 2 sort of systems, the opposite ends, and having that beautiful balanced way of handling the situation, and not being too yang and not being too yin.
I didn't know that Ace of Swords was considered a victory card. I remember feeling strongly for years like the SAS symbol, the British Special Forces, the Special Air Services symbol was magical and taken from the tarot, because it's a winged dagger. The swords are the suit of the air, and the dagger cuts straight down to the heart of the matter. It cuts right the way through. And I was like, there's too much here. They must have, whoever designed this knows what they're doing. They know what they're putting out there. So it's actually known as a card of victory, is it?
Yeah. I mean, it's a forced victory. With that card in particular, it's like, no matter what you put in my way, I will force my way to my victory. I will shoot
it to death.
Sometimes you need to do whatever you need to do. If you're in circumstances in front of you are such that, you know, someone's trying to kill your wife, you're going to have to do what you're going to have to do. It's one of those cards. It's that I will force my way to my victory, no matter what you put in my way, what obstacles are lay before me. It's got that sort of energy to it. How do you?
And it's the Ace of Spades, right?
Yeah.
So it resonates with that track by whoever, Lemmy, Ace of Spades, Motorhead track.
I don't know that song.
Oh, you don't know the Motorhead track?
I know Motorhead, but I don't know the song. Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah, you'll love it. It's really good, and it has that energy of do whatever it takes to get the job done to claim victory. So it's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Next card is the Strength card, connected to Leo.
When I was, I got given tarot cards for Christmas in California, and my sister wanted a reading, and all of her female friends wanted a reading, and I think for 7 different people, they all pulled the Strength card within the first 3 cards that they pulled. It was strange, but they were all going through relationship breakups. So to me, the Strength card, the particular element of strength that I look at with people is courage, is being brave, is doing the dangerous thing as courageously as you can, and trying to be assertive, trying to move forward even though you're fearful. In the card, I think the maiden, I think she's a virgin, is holding open the mouth of a lion. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. She also bears the infinite consciousness symbol in the crown chakra as well. So she's doing something that she shouldn't be able to do, but through her connection with infinite consciousness, through faith and through courage, she can handle this wild beast.
Yeah. So I agree with everything you said. And also, when I think of the Strength card, I think of connecting to your own inner wild wisdom, and bringing that forward, having a knowing of how to handle situations, and then letting that take the lead. Don't necessarily let your conscious mind be in the controlling seat here. Let your intuition guide you at this point with the Strength card. Because your feelings will tell you what you need more so than what your mind will, because your mind's full of justifications. So, and it's interesting what you said about your sister's friends all going through something similar. What I've observed is that and I've noticed it more with women with men, because I read mostly for women. I would imagine it's the same for men, but people who are really close, they're going through similar stuff. And and as soon as one of them sort of goes off in a different direction, they're kind of away from the group somehow as well. But when they are going through similar stuff, and when I've done group readings, again, similar cards come up for the people because they're at a similar mental space. That's why they've attracted to each other, and they're coming together in clusters. Yeah. So that's not always always the case.
No, it's interesting. I did in California as well. I had to have the book with me because I said to them, "I'll do this for you," but like I don't remember all the meanings of the minor. And there was a man and a woman. She's basically a stay-at-home mum, and he's a commander in the Marines. And they were getting. I watched them shuffle. I made them shuffle their cards thoroughly. They got weirdly similar card spread, not just the same cards, but the same cards in the same location. And it just shows you, like you just said, like people who are together, they resonate archetypally with the same issues, the same unconscious forces are there, and they can be manifested in wildly different areas of life. You know, if you're at home raising 2 kids, obviously there's going to be an issue around leadership. If you're a Marine commander, we don't need to say there's obviously an issue around leadership. But there was also the way in which they're very different people from very vastly different ethnic, religious backgrounds, but they're a very, very good couple, and they handle leadership in the same way. They do it with this intuitive intelligence, flexibility, and a sense of humor. And we had this whole sort of conversation. It was interesting to see a husband and wife just get the same cards in the same area on two completely different contexts. But yeah, we do resonate together.
I don't think I've ever had that, not a complete spread that's exactly the same. Similar stuff, but most of the time when people come to see me, they're kind of in that fraction kind of broken place as opposed to a good place with each other. So therefore, but one time my friend has got a very similar chart to you. She's horse with Aries, Malaysian girl, and Malaysian Chinese girl, really beautiful. She's married to somebody who's almost her opposite chart, which is a rat. So there was a time when I was putting some cards out for her, and they were, I don't know if they were trying to get pregnant, but she was pregnant, and I pulled out the Empress for her. It just fell out, and then when I was doing the reading for her, the first card that came out again was the Empress card. Then when he comes home, I put out a card for him, and he gets the Empress card as well. So needless to say, they've been trying for a while, and they got pregnant soon after that. Yeah. So yes. Okay. Should we move on?
Yes, sir.
Number 9, the Hermit.
That's me.
I was going to say, do you not think this is you?
It's me. Live by your own light. The card is advocating that you live by your own light, by your own intelligence. You spend time alone. You're going to go further trying to figure things out by yourself than by going to a hierophant or a priest or a guru. That's just a particular mode of life that you're in right now. Some of us are lifelong monks, and we just live alone, and that's it. That's our job. That's our job to sort of.
Well, maybe it is your job, because he's also the bearer of light. Let's not forget that. He also provides light for other people, for himself and for other people. So I think this is. Do you think this is you? I mean, I definitely see Hermit like archetype when it comes to you, because he's also the light bearer, and he shows people the way. And he does take his time, goes off into the mountains, does his own thing, learns the lessons the hard way, and then shares them with people. Yet still remains a hermit.
Yeah.
Because he's never going to necessarily be a part of open society, because it just doesn't function that way. And also, this is just an archetype. It's a time of someone's life. It doesn't mean it's you all the time. But this archetype is an archetype as such that doesn't really return to social environments, because he doesn't know how to function very well in them. Prefers to be by himself.
Yes, we should say at this point, for people who are not that familiar with the tarot, sometimes the tarot will show you a tarot card could be a phase that you need to go through. That might be like it might be 3 days, and sometimes you just are that card.
Exactly. So I've had people tell me I'm when I was younger, I was apparently the page of wands, the creative child, and then as I've gotten older, I've been told by a few readers, separate readers who don't know each other, that I'm the King of Pentacles. So
interesting.
I found that interesting. I'm like, okay, well, I don't know about that. I'd like to think I'm the King of Pentacles. Yeah, no, I buy into that. Yeah, I am.
It's a good strong card to be, for sure.
Yeah.
But
I think I can be, and I step out of it. I am, and I'm not. I don't know.
Does that mean you're going to manifest a ton of money eventually? Let's hope so. Let's hope those pentacles show up as little discs.
Yeah. I'm doing all right. I'm not doing I'm all right. Could be doing better, of course. Yeah. Now this is a very interesting one. What do you think about the Wheel of Fortune?
I mean, in a sense, this is kind of the tarot represented. It's the wheel of the tarot in heaven. Things are changing. There is this concept. There was a game show, wasn't there, the Wheel of Fortune, and in Shakespearean times they would talk about fortune as a woman, as a force, and the Wheel of Fortune could spin for you. There would be chaos, pure potentiality, and then something would come from it. So I would say this is a card of change, and I'm pretty sure in the traditional readings it can indicate good like good fortune as well, right? Unless it's upside down, that's
Exactly.
actually kind of a good luck card.
Yeah, it is. The Wheel of Fortune turns in your favor, basically. Yeah. Timeline wise, it's a 10 card, but it's also the wheel is normally 12 months or to get to a year. So basically, when this card comes up, I give a timeline of 10 to 12 usually.
Right.
But this card is just this. I was going to say rife with symbolism. There's so much. There's a Anubis on the wheel as well, who's your guide taking you down to the afterlife. There's just so much. There's the eagle. There's the bull. So do you know about the four fixed signs of the zodiac, Western zodiac? So
No.
it's Scorpio, Taurus, Aquarius, and Leo, right?
Oh.
Now they are represented here in this card, the Wheel of Fortune, on the four corners, and then they're represented again on the World card.
Right.
So there's the Taurus with the wings.
That's interesting.
There's the lion with the wings. There's the golden eagle, which is a second symbol of Scorpio. It has two, scorpion and also the golden eagle. And then there's the water carrier. There's not carrying any water right now. That angel there is symbolic of Aquarius.
Okay.
So there's four symbols there. And when we get to the world card, let me just jump ahead to the world card. You'll see again, those same four in the same four corners.
Interesting. And they kind of hold up the firmament, do they? They hold things in place.
Yeah, we only really see those four. But what's interesting is these symbols come again and again in the movies, in the Freemasonic buildings. They're everywhere.
Right.
To be honest, I'm an astrologer. I'm more of a Chinese astrologer than a Western astrologer, but I don't know what it means. It means something, and I will get to the bottom of it at some point. I actually did
they're putting things in the movies for some reason, aren't they? I watched a couple of Quentin Tarantino's last few films, and I was like, there's such strange things that are happening in the script here. I was in full conspiracy mode. I'm like, this is code. This isn't a story. This is
literally. I did an interview with Michael Feely. Do you know who Michael Feely is? He's done some work with he's done some interviews with Richard Willett and Gareth Ike on The Walk.
Okay.
So that's where I found out about him. I contacted him and asked him to do an interview. So that's the last one I've released. And in it, we were talking, I specifically wanted to talk about movies and the codes in there. So we were kind of talking about this a lot. It's no accident. It's completely this, because I studied screenwriting at university. And so as a kid, I was learning how there's the main story, there's a thematic story, and then there's a symbolic line. And I knew that I could sort of teach you the first two, but they don't teach you the third one. And when I was watching movies and analysing movies, even as a 20-year-old, I was looking at movies like the Minority Report or the blockbuster movies, and you see, well, why is the single eye there constantly? What is it about this all-seeing eye? And I see the triangle on your Pink Floyd shirt as well, and I'm like, this that side of the moon.
The dark side of the moon. It's everywhere.
Yeah. Well, it really is. Yeah, that's 666.
You know, at the end of Hateful Eight, do you remember the spoiler alert for people who haven't seen Hateful Eight? It's a good movie, but it's a strange movie. I didn't get that feeling with Inglourious Bastards. I was like, okay, I still understand Tarantino's doing his thing here, but Hateful Eight and the last Tarantino movie, oh God, about the Sharon Tate murder.
I saw that one.
There's such strange things that happen in the film. I'm thinking this is symbology. I mean, the last scene of Hateful Eight, there's two major references to the effect of watching violence and the effect it has on you. You're watching a violent film and the characters are reflecting on violence. They graphically murder a woman, and there's two men dying, graphically murdering a woman in a Masonic way. They're hanging her to death. A black man, a white man, shot through, one with his as being effectively castrated, and they are dying, and their last act is to graphically hang this woman. And I'm thinking, this is not incidental. This is not coincidental. It's such a strange thing. Like it's not a justified ending. Oh, and then the final act is he reads a letter that is a lie. So the final words of the film are the reading out of this long letter that we as the audience all know is a complete lie. and then it's covered in blood because he's dying, and he throws it away. And I was like, this is almost like pre-programming for the racial tensions we saw in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Do you remember that there's a forced blowjob scene in that film?
I've not seen it.
Oh my God, you've got to see it.
I'm not a fan of Tarantino. The only movies of his that I like really were the Kill Bill movies because I love Uma Thurman. But I hated Pulp Fiction too. I'm not a fan of his movies. That sort of gratuitous violence does nothing for me.
Well, maybe watch like a 20-minute analysis of it because they're there on YouTube. But Samuel Jackson, again, tells a lie to create violence. And he specifically says, he refers to a white guy kneeling in front of him. He's lying, saying that he forced somebody to give him a blowjob under pain of death. And he looks at the camera and he says, you're picturing that, aren't you? You've got that image in your head. It's upsetting you, isn't it?
Which to the camera?
And then into the camera. He's looking at an old white man. He's saying, I forced your son to give me a blowjob to get the old white man to pick up a gun so that Samuel Jackson can kill him. And I was like, really? This is just a little on the nose, given the symbology around kneeling, racial tension in America and everything else, and this issue of spectacle causing, and it's a lie. There's two incidences of a lie that cause a spectacle that create violence in the film.
Well, again, what's happening right now, right? I mean,
exactly.
It could be. It's the tactic that they've used again and again and again. I mean,
right.
People might think, it's conspiracy, but what about 9/11? Was that really the story that had happened, or is there something else that happened behind that, really?
Right.
And then what have they used that to do what? So, I mean, it's again and again, it's the tactic that is used. And they tell you, you watch, like, you watch, you can pretty much choose a movie where there's a baddie. And they will use that tactic of lying to provoke someone to get the outcome that they want. I was watching the second Maleficent movie with Michelle Pfeiffer. And in that the sort of tactics that she used were those same tactics that are used in political environments. And I'm just thinking, I mean, how more blatant? If you have two brain cells at work and you can watch these movies, you can see that they're blatantly telling you what they're doing.
Yes.
It's very easy to transfer that. Somebody said recently that if you want to know what's really happening in the world, watch the movies. If you want to see fiction, watch the news. And I thought that was very
That's good. That's really good.
I thought that was really accurate. All right, moving on. Justice card.
Whatever lingering injustice has been, could and probably will be redressed. The balance of the injustice will be redressed, and it will be in your favor. If it's therapeutic, and most of my clients that I read cards for, even when I was young, there was kind of a therapeutic element to the relationship, and so people come to therapeutic environments because they've suffered an injustice. I can't think of anybody who would go to therapy who hadn't suffered an injustice. So sometimes when there is a therapeutic breakthrough and there is a redressing of the balance of what was done to the person, you can see this card showing up.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that. I also see this card as a card of karma. What you put in is what you get out. When it comes reversed, then it's a case of, well, you might be a victim of injustice, but I wouldn't say that to somebody. I would say along the lines of, think carefully about what the outcome is that you want, and then think twice about taking this road that you want to take, because you might not get the result you're interested in. Consider other options right now.
Yes,
that's how I would phrase it. But it's the justice card comes reverse. Your options are very restricted at that time.
Right.
Yeah. But when it's upright, it's good. When it's upright, it's good. It means you'll get treated with fairness. You'll get the justice you deserve.
Yeah, because if you're in an unfair situation, by definition, your options are restricted. If you have options, you can usually escape the injustice. So there is a kind of confining element. I'd never thought of it like that. That's interesting.
Okay, now this is an interesting card.
Yeah, probably the most interesting card. And there is a kind of a mystery with this card. Like the guy is being punished, and he is being punished in a very barbaric way, but he's smiling. He is both inverted, so he is upside down. The world is upside down, and he is hanging. So the world is upside down, and there's no resolution. He's not fallen to earth, which presumably he will have to, or die. And he also has his leg in this curious yoga position that looks like a figure 4. So there is a mysterious. It's a very mysterious card. And typically the person will have some sort of a mystery going on in their life, and they will feel suspended. They will feel in limbo because the mystery has not yet resolved itself. It will, but maybe not in the timeline that the querent would like. It might be a little longer than they would be comfortable with. And so they have to be patient. They have to learn to live with this mysterious scenario. I think that's how I would normally.
Yeah, I completely agree. So there's some positives with this card as well, because once you're in this situation, there's not much you can do about it. So therefore, you surrender your will, let the universe take the lead, and right. In doing that, what happens is you get into the flow, you catch the wave. And the problem with this card is what's got you to this point is that you have been fighting the wave. You've been fighting the stream. The stream wants to take you down here, and you've been trying to go upstream. And you've been trying to fight the natural process of the natural flow of the universe. The ocean's going out, and you're trying to swim against it. And so when this card comes, it's because you've not been listening to your guidance, and it's got you to this point. Now you've got no choice. You have to. You're kind of restricted for a period of time, and then once you come out of that, as a result of this period of not moving, you will then catch the flow. So there is a positive to this card.
Interesting.
Yeah, I call it the surrender your will to the universe and let the universe take the lead card.
That's a hell of a title for a card.
Yeah. Now, number 13, the death card.
Oh, it means death because it says death on it, and there's a death man on it. This is the other one, almost as misinterpreted as the lover's card. Change, dramatic change, probably painful. Probably too fast, too soon, and a severance from that which was to that which is. And it could be a card related to trauma. It could be a card where the person's actually in shock because it's happened so rapidly and so drastically. There's no coming back from the death card, because he reaps, and that which he is farming is completely cut. The decisions are made. It's done. It's over. So there is an element of shock there. It's not I wouldn't associate this card with pleasant emotions, but it doesn't necessarily mean the death of a person. It certainly means the death of a dream, the death of a scenario, and the death of a possibility. And it's sudden and a little shocking.
Mm-hmm. And then the repercussions of that is that you can then transform. Your life must change after this, because once that ending has happened, you can't go back there. So therefore, you have to transform. It's inevitable after this card. So I talk about this death card as being transformation more so than just a death. It's the nicer way of explaining what this card is all about.
Yes.
But it's a necessary card. Sometimes, and coming on the heels of the Hanged Man as well, it makes sense.
It does, yeah, really does. I was just wondering what that would look like if the Hanged Man and the Death card showed up, and I suppose the temptation would be, following this conversation, to interpret it as not accepting the change or needing to accept the change that showed up. There are some questions that you shouldn't really ask.
Well, and nowadays I will say that to people. That's not a good question to ask. I had this reading again. It was strange enough. It was a guy chart after yours. It was Horse Aries, and he was the most negative person I'd ever read for, ever. And I basically, after the second reading I had with him, I was so depleted that I just could not read for him ever again. I told the agent woman, "Do not. If he ever comes again, tell him I can't read for him. Just tell him, make some excuse. I cannot read for this guy." Because his questions were all, is my ex-girlfriend cheating? Or I said, she's your ex-girlfriend. Like, is she with somebody else? all of his questions were negative. I said, listen, you got to ask yourself some better questions. These are terrible questions. My objective is to uplift you and give you some light and life and be inspired about life, not to basically depress you into to make you go split your freaking wrists. That's not what I want to achieve here. But
there is a brand of personality disorder, a brand of narcissism. I think they call it negativistic narcissism, where their whole buzz is to just make people feel really sad and depressed around them. That's their way of dominating and getting narcissistic supply.
Really, I was so depleted of energies. Like, thank God he was the last one of the day. I was reading a whole batch of people in Dubai, and he was the last one of the day. And he had my number, and he's been messaging me. Sometimes these people harass you. It's
like
crazy.
being a coach or a therapist.
Yeah. Okay, we've spoken about this card before, the Temperance card.
Yeah, I really like this card. I see it as like the Tai Chi card. You're going to handle oppositional energies, and you're going to handle it with skill. You're going to handle yin and yang. You're going to do it skillfully. Mm-hmm. You're going to redirect the flow in the way that you want it to for the highest good of all concerned. It's a positive, skillful card.
Mm-hmm. It's also 1 foot in and 1 foot out. I don't know if you've noticed. 1 foot in the water, 1 foot out on the ground. And so sometimes when people are having a state of indecision, they'll often pull this card. But it's also one of the cards of alchemy. There are a few cards of alchemy, the Magician card being one of them, this being one of them as well. So when you do pull this card, you can achieve big things by striking a healthy balance, keeping your activity going. But remember I mentioned that this is Hermaphrodite. It's Hermes and Aphrodite.
Is it really? I didn't know that was Hermaphrodite.
Yeah, no, we mentioned this. We spoke about this before one time.
Right.
And it's Hermaphrodite. It's the two coming together.
Interesting.
So it's not male or female. The angel is kind of non-sexual at all. It's purity.
And that's all because Aphrodite raped Hermes, right?
Well, that's the story, isn't it?
That's the story. Nobody talks about that though, do they?
So to go from purity to the devil.
I'm friends with the devil card. I have sympathy for the devil, like the Rolling Stones song says. I would say to people, look, there's fun things you can do in this life. There's pleasure that comes through the flesh and the material world. There's sex, there's drugs, there's rock and roll. But you'll notice these naked figures are chained to the Dark Lords. Yes, the lovers are chained here. Isn't it
interesting that it's really similar cards, but they're kind of the other way around here?
Right.
It's kind of the darkness. This is the purity. This is the dark aspect.
Well, this is, as I said before, this is the choice between the sacred and the profane. What kind of a life do you want to lead? If it's a relationship, what kind of a relationship do you want to have? Don't hate the devil, don't fear the devil, but know that is a card of addiction. You're not in a good place if you're there. You're not with that person because you love them. You're with that person because you're just completely addicted.
This is definitely an addiction card. You're chained. You're chained to it. But look at the numbers: 6 and 15. 1 + 5 is 6.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the devil card for me also means passion, unbridled passion, letting your id out to play, let the id out to sort of have do what it wants, have what it wants. The inner child, unfiltered desire, but passion.
There's a really famous Scouse tarot reader that I used to go to when I was a kid, and I was in a relationship, and I had cheated on her, and then the very next day I went to see the tarot card reader, and he was like, I know that you cheated on your bird because you've got the devil card. And he was like, but what this card's telling me was you didn't necessarily do the wrong thing. And he said, usually when the devil card comes up, I tell people not to do it. And he said, but in your case, he wasn't reading from the cards. He's psychic intuitive. He was saying, in your case, what I'm being told is you should be doing this. And I found out 6 weeks later that she was cheating on me with her ex. So there you go, kids.
How did he know that though? How did he know this was a good thing to do? It depends on where it fell in the spread, I guess.
I think
influences in your favor, maybe, and then put this.
well,
there.
I'm not psychic, so I always say to people, I'm reading the interpretation of the cards I've read in books, in different books. Some of the books are a bit different, but they all say similar things. But some people are genuinely psychic, and they use the cards as a means to access that psychic space, and he's one of them.
Well, I think I do that. I just don't know what I'm doing, to be honest. I have some crazy ability, and people like me and like my readings. They come back again and again. I don't entirely understand what the hell I'm doing, but I know that I hit the mark.
Yeah.
So I keep doing it. People keep paying me. I keep doing it.
I would think that you would be more in the psychic intuitive, because you're much more open to it than I am. I keep it in the realm of like Freudian, Jungian archetypes, and it could mean this or it could mean that. And I intuit very little from people. I don't have that kind of like what do they call it, second sight or anything.
I do this thing that once I've laid out a spread, I tell them that I'm going to talk really quickly, because when I do, what I do say comes from somewhere, and I just speak it really, really fast. So don't interrupt me, because it will stop my flow. So I just basically lay out the spread, and then I say, okay, I'm going to start now. And I zoom through it, and I say, like, I'll let you record it or whatever, because sometimes it comes so fast, I can't stop. And it's different. It depends on who's in front of me. I have to take their signs as well. If you have your time of birth, then that's helpful. But if you just have your date of birth, that's all I really need to connect to the archetype of who you are. And then I read, because I will read differently depending on what your signs are. Because you being a horse Pisces, then I'll know that the highest value that you have is freedom. I'll know that there's just different people, like sheep signs like me. I'm sheep with Aquarius. Aquarius is one of the most unconventional signs connected to the sheep sign, who's connected to the most subconscious. It's subconscious in the most powerful way. Then my sign is also kind of a weirdo. It's kind of an oddball, the odd one out. And the rooster Aquarius is even worse than how oddball than I am. So, but if I'm reading for rooster Aquarius, for example, I'll be looking at the non-obvious ways of the interpretations of the card. But for you, I'm looking at where is he restricted, because freedom's the most important ideal of this person.
Right.
It just depends, right? It just depends on who you're reading for. So as a result of knowing that, I just let something take over, and I'm Mr. Runnermouth. Is that the right word? Runnermouth? Is that what we used to say?
I know what you mean.
Anyway, Motormouth. Yeah. All right. Okay, let's go onto the tower. I know in some of your videos recently, I've heard you talk about the tower. Maybe we're in the phase of a tower at the moment.
I hope last year was the tower, and I hope that we're cycling out of it. I always 9/11. I'm always on 9/11 when the tower's there. I mean, something strikes the structure, and people fall screaming from the building. This is not a happy card. Like, something has popped up in your life that's really shook you to the foundations of your sense of reality. It's shocking, it's disturbing, it's upsetting, but some things have to happen that feel catastrophic at the time, that can lead us to where we're supposed to go, that can take us to where we need to be. And so the tower is an emergency, a catastrophe, but going through to the other side of it, we are still moving on that rotor, on that wheel, and we hope that the wheel is cycling upwards and not downwards.
It's also the symbolic of the building burning down from the top down. So from the ashes, the phoenix can be reborn, because all that's going to be left is rubble. So you've got to rebuild from that. It can also mean a sudden illumination, a sudden insight. It's something that once you acknowledge and accept, then it can change your entire belief system. So the way I look at this card is that your belief system is breaking down from the top down, and now you have to rebuild your whole new belief system, because you can't, the way you saw the world previously doesn't work anymore.
Yes, which is exactly what 9/11 was for me, because I was joining the army when that happened, and then afterwards I was like, I can't join the army now. I'll be joining the evil empire.
So you knew as early as back then that something wasn't quite right?
Oh, I knew that 9/11 was, the main story was completely fraudulent. I remember watching it live. I was in a shop it was a friend of my father's. I was there with my father, and it was a shop that sold wheelchairs in Birkenhead, and all of us were watching it, and we were saying, this is not right. There's something not right here. More than just going, oh my God, it's so awful, it doesn't feel real. The way it was being reported and the images that we were being shown and what they were saying was just like didn't add up. It didn't make any sense. They'd evacuated the second tower and then sent people back in, and they were telling us live that they were sending people back in, and I was like, in the middle of a fucking terrorist attack, you send people back into the most dangerous place they could put? No, you don't do that. You don't do that. So yeah, I was in the system with the army. I'd been visiting the different barracks as a potential officer. I was doing potential officer courses, and my father had done the RAF and he'd worked in military intelligence, and my goal was to do the army officer training and then work through to intelligence as well. And I kept coming back to that incident, and I was like, well, if those are our allies and that's who we're going to war with, and these are the reasons why we're going to war, I mean, which was the most specious load of garbage ever, like that we invaded Iraq and Afghanistan because of 9/11. You just go, what the fuck? These two things have got nothing to do with each other.
That's why the laws were changed at that time, so they could do those things.
Exactly. I mean, and you just have, people watch this and they'll go, that's all conspiracy theory. Do you know Osama bin Laden was never on the FBI's wanted list for 9/11? The reason that the FBI never put him on the wanted list, the official reason given, was there was no evidence to link Osama bin Laden to the 9/11 attacks.
So going to Osama bin Laden, there's even more nefarious history, because he was good friends with Bush. There's video footage of them like patting each other on the back and stuff. So.
Oh yeah, well, huge friends with the whole bin Laden family. I've coached some of the bin Ladens since then. It's a big family, so being a bin Laden is like there's a lot of them. But I've coached some of that family, and the fact that the Osama bin Ladens were like the biggest architectural contractor in the world at the time that happened, right before they got into a huge amount of destruction of buildings in that particular area of the world. I mean, forget the opium trade, the heroin, it just stinks. The whole thing stinks. And so I was watching this, and I had to say, I really wanted to join. I really wanted to join the army. It would have been a nice life for me. And I would have been part of the system, and I just couldn't do it. So for me, it was a belief system change. It completely changed the direction of life.
Well, for you also, that was the snake year that happened, and it was the end of the snake year. So we're heading into your own year of the horse. So 2002 was the year of the horse, which for you would have been, smack on the bottom, pointing you in the right direction.
Right.
So that would have been the year after, a few months after 9/11 happens, we hit the horse year. So
yeah. There was just no way I could. It's like I was trying to remotivate myself for it, and it was, I just couldn't. And the army stayed in contact with me for a couple of years. They really, really wanted me to join. And I just couldn't do it. And I didn't know how bad it was going to go. I knew a guy who was ex-Israeli Special Forces. I worked security with him. And at the time we were saying, we will be out of Iraq within 5 years. And he said, you will not have left Iraq within 20 years. And I was like, that's crazy. And he said, I've fought over there. I've worked, I know that area. He said, you won't be able to leave inside of 20 years. And here we are. Here we are. They're actually talking about putting boots back on the ground in Iraq under Biden. How many years later are we now? God, I think it must be coming up for 20 years now.
20 exactly, isn't it? Like 9/11, 2001 was 2001 state year. Okay, all right, star.
A card that was referenced by Jung quite a lot. There's a very famous Jung misquote, and it's actually he was talking about the star. If the star comes up, you're following, and usually I would say this is you're following your life's purpose. You're doing what you're supposed to be doing. It's a lucky star. It's a good sign. This is where you're supposed to be. This is where you're supposed to be going. People quote on Instagram, they throw this meme around and they throw this quote around where they say, Jung said, if you do not make the unconscious conscious, the unconscious will lead your life and you will call it fate.
Yeah.
He never said that, but there was an interaction with students where he was analyzing the meaning of the star and fate. Like your star is your fate, and around the unconscious. And if you distill the message he was giving them, you can distill it down to that. But he never actually said those words. But it's a great card. I love seeing it in a reading.
It's the Aquarius card as well.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it's a water carrier, water bearer. So there's a tranquility to this card. It's not like the Sun card or the Moon. Well, the Sun card is well, we're going to get to that. But with the Star card, there's a lot shifting on the internal landscape, but it's not showing yet on the external. So when this card comes, it sort of symbolizes the fact that you've done a lot of training and inner work that's been done, and it's not the results aren't showing just yet. They will do. Well, you can kind of see the tree in the background, like the bearing fruit, but you're not near it. It's kind of there, further back.
Right.
But you will see the fruits of your labor soon, but just not yet. So keep going. Don't feel like it's all in vain. The next card is the Moon.
That's what I want it to be. The Moon card is a card of spying and ninjas and people who move by night and not by day. If somebody came in a reading and said, "Is my boyfriend or my girlfriend cheating on me?" and I saw the Moon card, I'd be saying, I have some rather bad news for you. Yeah. Deception, that which is done by night, or that which is guided by the unconscious, that which is guided by, as you said before, the id. Maybe it relates in some ways to the Devil card, because the things that we do by night would typically, in poetic terms, would be the more sinful things that we would choose to do in the cover of darkness.
Yeah, I agree. And also, because you look at the symbols as well, there's is it a crab? I think it's a crab, which would be connected to Cancer. The Moon, which is the ruler of Cancer as well. So it's connected to Cancer, this card. So when the Moon card comes, it's not like the Sun card, where everything is illuminated. Only the next step of your journey, the next step is illuminated. So you've got to take the journey in faith that you'll get through all the difficult obstacles as well, because it's a treacherous journey ahead. However, just be guided. Just know that you will be guided, but only bit by bit. You have to start moving, and then you'll be guided along that journey. And it's not an easy one, but you can make it. So that's the Moon card, very contrasted with the Sun card, which is one of the best cards in the pack.
Yeah, joy, life, happiness, thriving, health, just everything that we as humans would want on Earth. A big smiling, happy sun shining down on all of the things that we want and all the things that we're doing.
And a happy inner child.
Yeah.
A joyful, happy, well-loved, well-treated inner child that's just able to be itself and free and joyful and all the things you said. Judgment.
The final day of judgment, the trump of the apocalypse. I would see this, I've seen interpretations of it saying that if you're in a legal battle or some sort of conflict or a divorce, you can expect a judgment in your favor. And it's also a card of your own judgments, like what kind of judgments are you making in your own life? Do you have the capacity? Do you grant yourself permission to make good judgments over people? So there's the external locus of control. A judgment will go your way, a decision will go your way, and the internal locus of control. Can you make good judgments? Can you discern good from bad as you navigate through life?
I mean, if you look at the symbol, I often think of Judgment Day, because they're literally coming out of the graves, and it's the call to Judgment Day. So I think of it as kind of a rebirth, a way of opening up to a new life again, a call to an occupation which is truly your own. Oftentimes when somebody gets this card, is because they're sick and tired of their job and they don't want to do it anymore, and they know what they want to do, and they're too afraid to sort of make the leap. This card comes up, it's like, make the leap, it's time now. And just simply put, Phoenix rising from the ashes.
Right.
as well as everything that you said.
And it's got the Archangel Gabriel on it.
Yeah, yeah. And now we come to the second, well, the other best card in the pack. The two best cards in the pack, the Sun and the World card.
Yeah, yeah. So strong life force card, well prospected, and also finalization in a certain sense. The end of a cycle that was begun with the step into the unknown by the Fool, and now you've made it. It's the end of the movie. You saved the world. You got the goal. You did the good thing. Bravo.
Yeah, being in tune with the universe, being in tune. She's a dancer. She's dancing, and look at her legs. The same four, but it's upright, not reversed this time, like the Hangman.
Interesting. Interesting. And the wreath that's around her, I've never noticed that before. You've got me looking at the pictures. I don't know why I didn't bother looking at the pictures.
Well, because the thing is, you don't until it's necessary. Your eyes will be drawn to the specific thing that's necessary for the reading that you're doing. But when you're sort of, this is the thing, when your intuition is in charge, and I'm sure Jung would agree here, that your eyes are going to take you to what's important in the moment. Like when I was reading for the girl whose sister was abducted, I kept seeing the boats everywhere because that's what was significant. But so the wreath, maybe that's significant for you right now.
Well, I actually thought for a second it was a snake eating its own tail, but it's obviously there is an element of the eternal to it. It's the zero. It's another zero, just like the Fool card, and it's taking us back to a fresh start again. So it's that moment of climax. Everything you've had your realization, you've had your moments of enlightenment. You sort of ended that story, as it were.
You're also in tune. It's like she's a dancer dancing to the beat of the universe, and she's catching the beat because she's completely gone through that journey and learnt the lessons. And right for now, before the journey starts all over again, for now she gets it, and she can utilize the universal processes for her benefit.
Could you shuffle the deck and give me a quick 3-card reading?
The entire pack, because I just opened a new one. So what I'll do is I'll use my witches pack instead because it's already shuffled.
Yeah, get your witches pack out.
I had it here for a reason, I'm sure. You okay to put this on the video, or you want to?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
I was actually going to ask you if you're not at home, so you don't have your card. Do you have your cards with you there?
I have a deck of cards that someone bought for me. They're at the bottom of the suitcase in the corridor. I don't really read the cards anymore unless somebody comes to me and is like, "You have to read for me." I'm like, "Okay, I'll try."
Oh, we've got a card jumped out for you. The bloody world card.
Nice.
The bloody world card. Unbelievable. Because you were the only card that I felt that was relevant to you right now was the world card, because you mentioned the wreath, and there was something in the way that you said it that because if you listen to the video, I literally said maybe that's for you. Maybe there's the wreath is also symbolic of victory, although the world card is obviously a victory card, but not unobviously a victory card. So this is again the Green Man in tune with the universe. But this is the card that jumped out for you, so that is really, really good. You're working on a new project, a project that could potentially expand your reach even more.
I think the new channel I'm working on right now is like, it's more on philosophy than psychology, and I'm just enjoying it a lot more.
I've just rather than doing a 3-card spread, I did a 6-card spread, and the outcome is the 6 of Wands. Look at the wreath again. This is the outcome. The wreath. Well, this is the 6 of Wands. Remember, this is one of the victory cards I told you about.
Yes.
So we've got a hell of a lot of victory going on for you right now. And this is in the most prominent position. So in the recent past, the business, there was the butterfly sort of emerged from the cocoon, the business idea that had kind of started, that's got you to where you are now. Right now, what you're doing is that you're focused on your own health. You're nurturing yourself first, then nurturing other people second. You're struggling with keeping the balance because this card is full in the position of influences working against you. So 1 foot in, 1 foot out. This is the Temperance card, the Hermaphrodite card. Short-term future, you're going to continue doing the work that you do as the Hermit, providing light for other people, being a beacon. And then also you're going to be moving towards serving your own desires. This is not the page, so the Knight of Cups, the Casanova, the lover. So yeah, and the two cards that we've got here, that because if card jumps out, I put it in the overall outcome card, the overall outcome position. So these are the two cards that we've got here, both of which are kind of wreathy and victorious and connected. So it's very, very positive. We're also moving out of your opposite year of the rat. So this would have been 2020, which is rat year. Like I mentioned, 1984 is rat year. 1948, the year that it was written, was rat year. And kind of came into force in 2020, which was rat year.
And he was going to have his face eaten by rats in the book.
Oh, yeah. I haven't read it for years. I read it when I was 18, I think.
That's how they psychologically break him. They put rats in a box and attach it to his face.
Yeah, crazy. Winston Smith, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 2020 was a rat year.
Which was your opposite year. As a horse sign,
I can confirm it was a fucking rat year.
I mean,
so for rats, was that a good year for them?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it wasn't a good year for anybody, was it really? But in terms of what it does, it has a similar impact to people on the opposite end of the polarity. So you're a horse, and my friend who's a rat sign, still, both of you are going to get little pats on your bottom saying, look, sort it out. The same thing that happens in your own year of the horse. It's a similar energy here, but because it's your opposite year, it's harder. In your own year of the horse, it's slightly easier. There's slightly more opportunities for you, but emotionally for horse signs in a horse year, it's not easy. In a rat year, emotionally, in terms of your work stuff, even though it's the year of the entrepreneur, the rat it's opposite to the horse. So what happens because the horse is the political rebel, and in an entrepreneurial year, it's just block. So even if it wasn't this crazy year and all the stuff that happened, rat year is going to be difficult for you. Think about 1996. Think about 2008 for you. What were those years like?
Shitty.
Yeah.
I mean, 2008 was a really rough year.
yeah, it would have been. And then your own years of the horse also aren't easy emotionally, but there's still there's still a lot of freedom, because 2002 for you was a horse year, 1990 was a horse year, 2014 was a horse year. So even though emotionally things were difficult, you often find that you'll travel those years as well. You'll maybe move to another country that time. Yeah. So I moved to 2
different countries in 2014, no less.
Well, there you go. Because if there is the opportunity for freedom, right? Because that's what the horse is all about. But emotionally, it's hard. It's hard. Yeah. So the best year for you.
3 different countries in 2014. Go on, sorry.
So the best year for you, astrologically, in terms of the most peace that you have, is the sheep year. I don't know if that's the case, because I'm talking traditional Chinese astrology will tell you that. However, what I have observed is that for people who have who are quite highly emotional, and you're Pisces, so I would imagine that you can get like that. Sheep years, which is one of the most sensitive year of all, like highly emotive year of all, it can cause horses to sort of not think clearly. Right. Especially because it's their most romantic year for them. And they want to believe so much. A lot of these horses want to believe so much, and they're cynical and they're hard. And then when they sort of let themselves go there, they go there too fast and too quickly. Right. And so I find that sheep years are also kind of a bit emotional for them, but there's lots of peace for them that year, at least. 2015, 2003. 2003 would have been a good year for you, I would imagine. Some good stuff would have happened for you that year, where you were 25.
25. Yeah, I think so. I don't really remember much about that. I've got punched in the head a few times. It's sort of not some of the memories of me. I went from wanting to be an officer in the army to door work. It was a very strange transition.
I'm asking, who are you now? So you've developed a craft of mastery. You've got to the point of being like the wise, emotional, so there's the water king, the king of cups. And now you're in a position where you have lots of options. Right. Simply put.
Interesting.
But mastery is there. So he's also he's the funder of arts, and he's also the publisher. And now you have just lots of options. The wizard.
Interesting.
Do you have any questions?
No, that was a helpful reading. Thank you for doing that.
My pleasure. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us as we navigated the first 22 cards of the Major Arcana. Who knows? Maybe if we have an opportunity, maybe we can do some more and look at the minor arcana, or maybe the 16 archetypes. I think you'd really like that. The 16 archetypes of the minor arcana, the 16 court cards. Maybe we'll do that at some point. But thank you very much for joining us, Richard. Where can we find you?
If you go to my YouTube channel, it's called Richard Grannon Philosophy, and you'll find lots of interesting things there.
Okay, thank you. And you know where to find me. I am Zakariya Adeel, your humble host, and I will see you next time on the Zakariya Adeel podcast. Bye-bye.
Cheers.
If you would like to get a tarot and astrology reading with me, then get in touch at zakariyaadeel@gmail.com, or you can contact me from my website, zakariyaadeel.com. Thank you very much.